Doop, 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 doop. Alrighty, YouTube. Welcome back, YouTube. If y'all are new here, my name is Angel. If you all are not new, then of course, welcome back. As usual, I want to thank y'all for liking, commenting, subscribing, running those views up, all that good stuff that y'all do to keep this channel alive, right? So as y'all can see, today I do have a special guest with me, Lion of Yehuda. We're gonna get into that name, right? But first, just introduce yourself to the people, let them know a little bit about you.
Absolutely. First, Monet. I think that's the way it goes. To
Monet.
each and every one of you. Peace, peace, peace. Love, love, love to each one of you. I am Lion of Yahuda. I am grateful for the opportunity to be here with you, sis.
Mhm.
And just to keep it short in that one, because I believe we're going to go into it as we converse. So just to keep it there. Good day to each and every one of you phenomenal beings.
Okay, okay. So of course I'm glad to have you here as well. A bit of a long time in the making, right? So
Absolutely.
I did just want the people to get an idea of, and I'm kind of curious myself because I've been trying to pinpoint it. What is your walk of life, faith, spirituality, religion, whatever you identify it as? What? Tell me about that.
Well, I started off, I was raised as a Christian. So
Hmm.
um, that was the base when it comes down to my spiritual walk, Christ being the center. So then, as I matured, I began to be led to different other spaces like the Quran and the Gospel of Thomas and many other books which deal with other parts of the Christ that we were not taught in Christianity. And then, so then all the other information that came in these last few years. So I would have say I matured into a believer and then went from a believer to a child of the light. I believe I matured. I was always a child of light, but I was always maturing to different spaces when it concerns being a child of the light. I'm a son of God.
Hmm. So one moment. You are skipping just a little bit still. This is what I was saying. I was wondering if you came down, would that help? That's actually why I'm cam down right now because
Still
I
there, sis?
noticed. Yeah, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
I
Yeah,
can
so
hear
I
you
was
now.
saying you're still like skipping a little bit, not as bad as before, but I was wondering, again, if you like cam down, sometimes that helps it like not have to work so hard to connect and stuff, if that makes sense.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello?
Try turning camera off. Okay.
Okay, let's see. Can you hear me? Hello? Hello? Hello?
Yep.
You can hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, so I think we might be back good. Sorry about that. Um, not sure why it's doing that. But yeah, so you were saying that you're a child of the light. Um,
Right?
so can you explain that a little bit? Because I know, so initially I thought you were an Israelite, right? Um, and I know that you said that the Israelites are the children of the light by DNA as opposed to spirituality.
Yes.
Okay, so
Can you hear me, sis?
yeah, I can hear you now. I heard you say yes. So I think I know what
Can
that means. Being, can you hear me?
okay, good, good. I'm go ahead.
Okay, yeah. So I was saying I think I'm
Yep.
following you, right? One of the like journeys or detours that I went on was Hebrew Israelites, right? Like studying with them. I never officially identified as an Hebrew Israelite, but I did study
Mhm.
amongst, a camp essentially, right? And I was wondering,
Okay.
this is something I heard them refer to as well, right? With how the Israelites are essentially the true children of God, but you can kind of be an adopted child by having faith in his son, right? And well, him
Yeah.
as well, obviously. So is that the same thing that you're talking about, or do you believe you have a different explanation for that?
Well, under the faction of uh the Nate that okay, so for instance, Islam. I use it as an
Mm-hmm.
example. There are many different factions of Islam. So you have the Nation of Islam, which is a divided part of the religion of Islam.
Mm-hmm.
So they read from the same book, except they it's almost like when you remember when John, before Christ showed up on the scene, John was baptizing people,
Mm-hmm.
and so you had followers who were following John. But then when Christ showed up on the scene, John then diverted the people to, and probably was preparing them anyway for the Christ and his coming. So then now, still there were factions of believers who were following John and now listening to Christ.
Mm-hmm.
So you have a faction, the Israelites who get out on the scene. These are they truly know who they are, but they've made it a pact. I'm not. I'm a separate from a pact. I am in the spiritual arena. I know that my inheritance is spiritual and not just physical.
Mm-hmm.
So I do believe and know I have the DNA of a Israel or Israelite, one of which specifically where my name comes from, which is the tribe of Judah.
Okay.
Absolutely. So and this promise came to Abraham that he would have children that he could not number. So even though we may speak different languages, which is why I refer to in the beginning you and I's conversation about though we may come from different arenas, we are leaning to the same path. We've derived to this space, but there is one path that we're all headed to because we believe that there is only one creator.
Okay. So that's a good jumping off point right there, because I noticed that when in the previous video when I mentioned goddess worship, you, if I'm not mistaken, um communicated that you believe there is a masculine and feminine aspect of the creator, as opposed to a father solely, or a mother solely, right? And then
Correct.
also when we began this conversation, you said that you saw the matriarch as a form of bringing women into a position of power and leadership to create an ultimate balance of authority between the man and woman, right? Did I understand that correctly?
1,000%. One
Okay.
thousand percent.
So now that's very interesting to me, because the Israelites that I've ran into before have a very, very different, and by different I mean patriarchal, approach. That is kind
Mm-hmm.
of like there's the father, there's the son, and femininity has nothing to do with divinity, right? In that women do not have authority, right? So I was just kind of
Mm-hmm.
interested
Mm-hmm.
to see, why does your perspective differ even though you still identify as an Israelite.
So, and that's the beautiful thing, right? So that's the reason I don't. Names are names, right? Names are names, and if you really go into the name, what a Israel or Israelite is, it's truly just the children, right? When you look at it, Israel, who was Yaqub, and then was renamed Israel, just
Mhm.
lines up with all the children that he had after. So they came under the house of Israel. And also we have to know that they gave us what they wanted us to have. So when you dive in a little deeper, there's more information. Some of us stop at one faction and become real dogmatic with it. But when you are truly walking in spirituality, you have to know that there is no end to infinity. So there's always more to learn. You may have grasped a part of it, but there's more yet to learn. And so what I learned about this during the journey is before, as Christians, most Christians do not learn about chakras and the pineal gland and the Christos oil. But when you're being led by the Spirit of God, then you're being led, which is a feminine aspect of God, by the way. Because when you look at the masculine and feminine,
But essentially, you were
but we're going
saying
to
that they so there's a limited perspective, right? People pick up the scripture and they read it from a very dogmatic perspective. I noticed that some of the things that you're saying, it actually kind of reminds me of like the Gnostic Gospels, right?
yeah,
Um, and
yeah,
I was wondering, do you subscribe to only the canon KJV, or like what put it like this? You said that the Nation of Islam and Muslims read from the same book, right? The Quran, right? But both of them tend to
correct.
agree that this is the canon text that we read from. Versus in Christianity, I know that there can be a
Mhm.
huge debate on if we're Old Testament or New Testament, or if we're KGV or if we're NIV, or what the Book of Enoch was valid and it should have never been thrown out. What is your perspective on that?
Right. Absolutely, 1000%. Because you have these different pieces that show the bigger picture. But if you dismiss one or the other, then you miss some parts. So
Hmm.
that means you're not fully engulfed in the trueness or the truth. And so it gives room for lies. Um, the Gnostics, the ones that were left out, the ones that they tried to destroy, these books are now so more prevalent now because it just shows us another part of the story and the stories that were given in the original Bible, right? So there, but then we have to know that it was ascribed from other texts. They were ascribed from the scrolls. They were so all the mystery books that they took and then they put these pieces together only to control the masses.
Hmm.
And this is the evidence that we know to divide and conquer. If you divide a number of people or a people or a nation, then what you're able to do is destroy them. So what they did was systematically uh, divide us and then keep us from each other by demonizing one another to each other. And
Hmm.
so um, when you look at the creator and how creator was nature was created, there is a male and there's a female, period. And there are abnormities where you have one that's able to do both. But either way, it is a male and a female aspect that must be applied to be born,
Hmm.
period. So for the longest, we had this patriarchic look, and that's all we were consumed with. We were put up with. So now, when you hear someone speaking during this period of time, we had to travel. I myself personally had to travel back through my femininity in order to stand up in Godhead.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. Now,
So
Now walk me through
Um,
that a little bit. What you
and
said
how
you
is it
had to travel with your.
exemplified in my house? Well, for a
Mhm.
period of time, I was shown that I was not. Go ahead.
Oh no, I'm sorry. Continue. I think there's a bit of a lag, so I thought I had heard you stop. But I wanted to hear what you were just about to say.
In my house. So I was found in the beginning that I could not. I needed assistance in being the manager of the funds of the house. So then it was my queen who was who took over that responsibility. And what came from it is that I was able to see. Are you able to hear me, sis?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay. I was able to realize that when she took on that position, and I submitted to that because I realized I needed to. She was stronger at the moment in this period of time for that phase in our life. Then she did well. Well, I was supporting her as she was continuing on and managing our funds and things that were going on. But along with that, we were creating line, creating other streams of income. So then these pieces just lined up. And then when you look at scripture, you find out when you look at a virtuous woman, what she looks like is that she's one who has wisdom. She's able to take care of her household, and it speaks of her husband as one who goes out into the city. So he's in a different position, but she's holding down the house. So the authority that is to give it back, and I'm gonna tie it into my big mama. My big mama, that's my dad's the one that introduced Christ to us. God talked about God, boom, 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 boom. But if I was to dismiss everything that I received from my big mama, then I would be denying myself. So when a male in any capacity denies female importance, then what he's doing is denying himself.
Mhm.
It's like a son who says that he didn't need his mother.
I agree. I think that was actually just a conversation I was having the other day about how we have to stop looking at ourselves in opposition of one another. We are two halves of a coin, right? We are two um individuals that are connected to the same system. We're a team.
Mm-hmm.
So if
Mm-hmm.
you are suppressing and oppressing your woman, then you are
Mm-hmm.
limiting her ability. And if you are limiting her ability, then you are either diminishing or completely removing her usefulness to you, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um the metaphor that I use is like it's kind of like playing chess, but you're trying to limit your queen to only moving like a knight. Like, why would you do that? That's the most powerful component of her, is that she's not as limited in her movement. So if you
Yeah.
sit here and say, well, you can't do this, you can't do that, you can't go here, you can't, you're restricting her, which in return is restricting your own power. You're sabotaging
Yeah.
your own self, right?
Yeah.
And I think that this is what a lot of men do when they say, "Oh, I want a woman to shut up, be quiet, and submit to me. Don't think, don't do this. I'm the head. I do everything. Me, me, me." Do you understand how much you're limiting
Yeah.
yourself? You could have this woman sitting
Right.
next to you could be a genius. She could have an idea in
Mm-hmm.
her head right now that could completely change the game for you. But
Absolutely.
you're so focused on being in control at all times that you're suppressing that part of yourself and holding your own self back. Um, but so I definitely like that you were able to
1000%
kind of
sis.
see that.
1000. Yes, absolutely. And I'm grateful that I was able to see that because it allows me. How can I lead a house? How can I lead my house without that knowledge? without that insight properly?
Mm-hmm.
How can I expect to be revered as a king, priest, or a prophet if I'm not in tune with the Creator, who is neither male nor female,
Mm.
but is composed of both masculine and feminine?
And you see, so this is
So
why.
base
I'm sorry.
no, it's all right.
Yeah, sorry about that. There's like a slight lag, so it's like it causes us to kind of like cut each other off sometimes. So my apologies. Finish what you're saying. So essentially, um, this is why, at least in my culture, anyways, we believe in allowing the women to take that position of leadership because in order for really the goal is egalitarianism, right?
Mm-hmm,
To understand that we are both leaders, we both lead in different areas, we both are able to take charge in different
mm-hmm,
areas. However, for the person who's kind of taking the position or the outward position of leadership to be able to allow that to happen, they have to be they have to let go of their ego enough
mm-hmm,
to allow that to happen. And as far as I can see, as far as I've researched, as far as I experience, it is significantly more difficult for men to let go of that sense of pride or ego or the desire to dominate, right?
mm-hmm,
Um, and so that causes a situation where a man gets a position of authority, and then it's very hard for him to allow for the woman to step in and share that authority and create balance. So the
God.
idea, so I'm saying that to say that when we say matriarchy, we're not necessarily saying, oh, that women should just create a dictatorship and rule over men, right? But
Mm-hmm,
essentially to say that the ability to delegate and take that initial leadership is placed with the woman so
mm-hmm.
that it can create a sort of checks and balances system, right? So I did want to clear that up with you.
Oh no, absolutely, sis. There's a saying out there that says there's some things that when you don't have nothing, it needs no explanation is needed. The
Hmm.
beautiful thing about this it does you could we could look at it, we could chop it up a little bit more into small pieces where it's a little bit more digestible for people. But
Hmm.
at the end of the day, if I am a wise man, if I am a wise man, that means that one thing that we realize that wisdom comes from is first um, the reverence of your creator, and that's also known as fear of your creator or fear of God. So when you get a reverence, it's not one, it's one that you give respect to. So I'm respecting the God that created me. Now the aspects of the God that I respect is that I know that he made both male and female. I know that without the male seed in the woman's womb, a child could not be born or produced. And there's a saying, Miles Monroe says this in one of his in his dictations and his messages, is that a woman is like an incubator. You can a man, if he learned to give her the ideals, if she's mature enough to take the ideals, then what she can do is ponder on those ideals, and then just as she does with the seed in her belly, she can also take these very same ideals and incubate on them. And when the time is right, she can then bring forth the baby, which
Hmm.
could look like a business, could look like a plan or ideal or logistics. It could whatever it looks like, but it will be for the male aspect to give over the seed. He's got to
Hmm.
give it. He's got to give it up.
Yeah.
He's got. He's got to give it up. And so that's how we see it in this in our maturity, as we've been elevated, as we've been growing, as we've been metamorphosing. This is the aspect that makes so much sense to me. So now because I humbled myself and relinquished something that needed to be in her ball, in her will well, so
Mm-hmm.
that she could be productive, then that allowed us, even though we didn't realize what we were doing when we did it, it shows in the fruit that's coming from it.
Mm-hmm. I think that's a beautiful analogy. Now, there are aspects of the seed conversation that I don't align with.
Okay.
Um, as a within my spiritual walk, right? In my
Sure.
scientific research, right?
Sure.
But I understand what you mean. I do definitely understand what you mean, and I do agree that concept of having to let go and allow your partner to cultivate something in a way that you can't, so that it can
Mhm.
reach its full potential. You can't do both,
Yeah.
right? Um that I 100% align with, right?
Yeah.
Now, so just switching gears for a moment, because I did want to touch on this.
Okay.
Um, I wanted to make sure that we touch on this, right? Because what initially sparked this conversation was when I was speaking with the brother Kings with Knowledge, and
Mhm.
we both were agreeing on the validity of astrology. However, I posed the question, um, how do we draw the line between the effects that the cosmos, or the influence that the cosmos have on us, in our own free will, right?
Yeah. That's right.
um how is it that we can believe that Mercury going into retrograde can have an effect on my day-to-day life, but still believe that I have free will within that? How does that make sense, and what does that look like, right?
Yes. Yes. That is beautiful. So, have you ever been in a scenario where you received a download, you went
Hmm.
somewhere, and then it was also being said again? So it almost acts as a confirmation,
Yeah.
right? So your free will never gets imposed on.
Hmm.
What happens is, if you are lining up with the cosmos, meaning because you're doing the work, whether it's shadow work or you're doing some reflections, you're taking on accountability, you're not blaming others, you're forgiving, then what you'll find out, what I've found, is that when I'm lining up, then more information is given. So it allows me to realize, oh, because I lined up and then the stars lined up, then this came. So it's where you drawing the line at is that your choice is still your choice, even if you don't. There's people who do not know anything or most ideas about how the stars line up and how they affect us. They may know the limited or the surface, like the moon moves the water, the tides, and then because we're made of water, then the moon is shifting our bodies within, but we don't know scientifically how that is affecting us.
Hmm.
So it's almost like a farmer who doesn't know that he should plant before the spring or after the spring.
Okay. So it's, in that regard, it's kind of like we should think of life as a collaboration between ourselves and the universe that we exist in, right?
Absolutely.
Um, between ourselves and our creator, in a
That's
sense
correct.
that
That's correct.
we are making decisions freely, but the creator is also making decisions, right? Um, and that when we are aligned with one another, when we are harmonious,
Mm-hmm.
just like with anything, the more me and you are aligned, the more we can work with one another, and the
Mm-hmm.
more it will become difficult to tell where one ends and the other begins, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I love it, sis. Absolutely. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Absolutely. And thus we can come to Alpha and Omega, you know. Um, when you realize that that synchronicity allows for a flow that is uninterrupted,
Mm.
when you find that balance, see, because here's another depiction: carnal mindedness. So when one is dealing with the flesh, what one will do with the fleshly kind of thinking or a carnal minded thinking, then it's about the feelings. I feel this way, I feel that way. You made me feel this way, you made me feel that way. But when you're walking in the spirit, there's a flow which is produced. And what I've learned over the years is that water is a representative of spirit. So when you have the water flowing and you're flowing with the water, rather being a resistor to the water in its directional flow, or even the wind, where you don't even know where the wind may blow, but it's blowing and you know it's there. This is how the children of the Most High God are depicted.
Mm.
So when you're in the flow, it's almost like, for instance, your sign. Right now they're saying that we're in the age of Aquarius, right? Well, then you have um, the water signs who are truly walking or being, if they've done the work, they're flowing in their attributes,
Hmm.
and uninterrupted, because a rock can't get in the way of water. A hill can't get in the way of water. It just goes around it or through it.
Mm.
Maybe in some cases over and under it. So
That is powerful.
when you're in your true authentic self, that's what it feels like in flow.
Mm. Yeah,
So
I think a lot of that has to do with water. Like, when it collects in one space, it becomes very powerful, right?
mm, mm-hmm,
And I think that that is a nod at how the illusion of separation limits us, right? Um, all of this is kind of coming full circle because this is what we were talking about earlier: is that we limit ourselves and we sabotage ourselves when we look at our counterparts as our opposition, right?
absolutely.
um when we realize the oneness of things, we work in accordance. This wraps around with a conversation I was having earlier on the podcast about how human beings are so destructive to the planet because we've separated ourselves from the planet. And
Yes.
nothing else in nature does this. Everything else understands that it is one with the environment. Only humans feel like, well, I'm not an animal, I'm not a this. I have my own separate goals and ambitions and dreams, and I can do whatever to achieve them regardless of what effect it has in the system, right?
Right. Right.
Um and that separation in the long run limits, sabotages and deteriorates us, right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Um so just bringing that full circle, like I said, one drop of water um is limited in its ability, right?
mm-hmm,
But a river or a tributary or a lake or an ocean is a totally different level of power. It's the same element, it's the same thing.
mm-hmm.
It's just not separate.
Right.
Um,
Correct.
and I think that's very interesting because the scripture talks a lot about being set apart from God, right?
Mm-hmm,
In that how true death is to be separated from God.
Mm. Mm.
Um, so I think that that was a true correlation. I remember, correct me if I'm wrong, when the Israelites finished building the tabernacle,
Mm-hmm.
they weren't even allowed to enter it
Mm-hmm.
because they were doing that bullshit
Yeah.
that that separated them from the creator. And I just always found it so interesting how all throughout the scripture, one of the biggest punishments that you can endure is being separated from God.
That's it. That's it, sis. That's it. And that's that final death. See, if one is not willing to become a sacrifice, and this is where the living sacrifice comes in place. If you're not willing to lay down your life, meaning you lay down your thoughts, your ideals, your feelings, your will, and surrender it so that you
Mhm.
can receive a better way of looking at things, then you are definitely stuck in a place where death is assured. True death
Mhm.
is assured. Like there is no going around it, in it, around you period. It's a done deal. And this is where a lot of us have been distracted through programming and other things, because see, a lot of these factions have already been able to go into the future, see what's going on, and come back and try to divert it. See, and this is something that's like, oh, wait a minute, that's all so far fetched. No, CERN is doing it, and so many other factions are doing it, and and those who don't believe that there are black arts out here that are using these technologies, these laws that were set in place by the Creator, but for evil, they're using them,
Mhm.
which can be considered being part of the Antichrist. So you have children who will walk in disobedience because though they truly have royal blood, they may have been duped by the beguiler to give up their inheritance.
Mhm.
And they gave it up for a piece of morsel. That's what Esau did. And
I was
that's
just gonna say that I feel like that's what Esau did on a lesser level.
a
Um,
period.
yeah.
Yeah, you're correct, sis. He did it, and it started a conundrum.
Mhm.
And so when there's so many different, we could, like, since we could travel so far with this, but to stay intact to where we're going when it comes down to the matriarch. Why is it important? Why is it important? Because that the female be able to be given her power back. See, when we look at it, we think that it means that the man is now no longer, or the masculine aspect is no longer going to have his authority position. It seems as if, though, it means that the man must sit back, do nothing. No, 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 no. What one must do is realize the importance of healing. This is important because when she was disrespected,
Mhm.
when she was when she was uh, uh, um, unrightfully touched, when she was diminished, or she was diminished in her capacity, um, in her authority. Why is it important that she be put back in position? Well, this is the thing that is key to what you have said, is that one will find out one without the other is no good. It doesn't matter when we look at the truth. Light without dark, forget about it. Up without down, forget about it. Left without right, forget about it.
Mhm.
Because if it was left, it no longer is but what it is. It's no longer a left side or a right side. It's one. That's why the two must become one.
Mhm.
And When you look at it, the first aspect of that is within oneself. A male
Mm,
must become one with himself first. That means the left side of him and the right side of him must learn to function as one. That means his masculine and feminine aspects must become balanced. And
mm,
just the same for the female. Because even
mm.
if she is given a position of power, but she's only one sided, she'll be lopsided.
I love that you're highlighting that because that's something that I've been emphasizing myself as well, is that I dislike how people think that matriarchy and patriarchy are only external factors. You can have patriarchal women and matriarchal men,
Yeah.
because it's internal. And I think that I don't know how you feel about astrology, but
Mm-hmm.
um I think that this is a journey that I kind of naturally walk in,
Okay.
right? Because when I look at my natal chart, for example, I have equal masculine and feminine aspects,
Okay.
right? My fire and water is equal, my earth and air is equal, my masculine and feminine is equal. And I find myself teetering in a space of feeling like I have to choose between the two,
Mm-hmm.
or find a way to allow the two to blend together,
Mm-hmm.
or nothing works. Anytime that I try to be completely masculine, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
Anytime I try to be completely feminine, it doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
The only way that I've been able to see success in my reality is learning how to make decisions utilizing both of those energies, right? And I think that that's something that I would like to see all of us work to embrace,
Mm-hmm.
right? um that just because you are a man, because this is something that we see a lot where it's like, oh well, men are logical and women are emotional,
Right.
men are this and women are that.
Mm-hmm.
We all have the capacity to experience and utilize these things, and when we isolate ourselves into only one fraction of them, well, this is why our world is in a disarray, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Hmm.
We agree. We agree, sis. And this is the thing. For instance, in my sign, my rising and my setting are the same. They're both in Scorpio. So
Hmm.
I came in under the sign of Scorpio. So here's another thing in Christianity, demonized. See, but this is the thing though. Everything that God created was good. It's the enemy that makes it evil by the use of it. Um, you take any of the technologies and you use it for dark work. So
Hmm.
you're not or what would be considered selfish work, because we were born in sin, shaped in iniquity. So we were born into this muck, which is the carnal flesh or the carnal mindedness. So then to die to that carnal self means you're dying to selfishness. So when you die to selfishness, that means you are resolving that you desire not for the consumption of myself, but for the consumption of all.
Hmm.
So it's like a male who would go out, get the food, come back in, say he gonna be the first to eat because he did the work. Or even vice versa. Now you see women are doing the same thing because they're the ones mostly making the bread now, more bread than most men, right? So now they're bringing in the bread and they're saying, "No, I'm eating first." You know,
Hmm.
so you had this flip flop, but in reality, it's for everybody. So when you are able to go in and you get past these factions we've been programmed into, caused to become, which was not our original nature, so that's the reason why the feminine must be put back in position. And period. No other way around it. Because it's been too masculine for too long. It's been patriotic long enough. And it was a demise not by our people, by the colonizers, no matter who they were and no matter what their color. they were the colonizers, and because they colonized so many different factions of this world, then they changed their whole culture.
Mm. And I think that's extremely powerful because I don't care who's playing the role, right? If you're a man who's a protector and a provider, if you're a woman and you decided you want to be the protector and provider because that's the society we live in now,
Mm-hmm.
um, either way, your role is completely useless and null and void without the being or beings that you are protecting and providing for,
Yeah,
right? Those are acts of service. To say I provide what to who?
that's right. That's
If
right.
you take the woman out the picture, provide what to who?
Right.
That you're now useless. You're now no longer a provider. If you're a protector, protecting what from what?
Right.
If the answer is nothing, then you're useless, right?
That's right.
The our roles are interdependent. This is what a system is for. There's absolutely no point in having a steering wheel, but there's no wheels. There's no
Right.
tires. There's no, like, what is the point of any of this if all of the pieces are not in place?
Yes, ma'am.
Like,
Yes, ma'am. 1,000%. And here's a resolve I came to. If it wasn't for my family, and I'm talking about every one of them, I'm talking about every single one of them. And I start with my direct family, which would be my household, which is um, fulfilled with four sons uh, and two different queens at different times. So two marriages. So each one of them, though, taught me a lesson in their own way. They
mhm,
were in my life and they caused an effect. And as I matured, I realized what effect they were having on me and why it was important they had that effect on me. I needed it to mature. I needed it. I needed it, the agitation. Why was I so consumed with being a family man? Because I am in my being. I was created to be this. So I'm always looking to my family, but I still had selfish ways that was harming my family, causing division in my family. So when I as I continue to mature, I realized every one of them played a part in my life, and I should give them respect for that.
mhm,
Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
agree.
Like for instance, many of us are realizing that there's some of our culture that was taken away from us that's returning to us as we're elevating, as our DNA is coming back online. Right, they're being charged up and everything's flowing. Now your ancestry line, because you're breaking the curses. Now your ancestors are being free too, because you are being set free. You're freeing your bloodline. So therefore, they become active in your life as guides, as support. So if I never gave the respect, though, to the proper people, then I would stay in a karmatic state because I would continue to do the same thing over and over, looking for a different result because I'm not maturing. So um, it lines up with our spiritual essence being able to elevate to its highest state. And this system doesn't want that to take place because it knows what is taking place right now is happening because of it. We're having this conversation because of it, because it's in line, it's on time, divine time that this conversation comes the way it's coming.
Mhm.
Because we are leaving this aspect of the world behind, the old, and are becoming new.
I think on that note, because I don't have much time left. On that note, I do feel like that's the perfect synopsis, right? That's the perfect completion of everything that has been spoken upon. That we have been existing in a certain space for a very long time now, and we are now in the midst of a transition, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, and I do mean that in both ways, right? Because what is a transition? Death, right?
Yes.
But that's a whole nother conversation. Point is, we are going through a transition,
Yes.
right? And where I believe we are transitioning towards what we talked about earlier, moving back into harmony with the creator,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So in a sense, we are transitioning, we are dying, but we are actually coming into everlasting life in a sense,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
Because we are finally reuniting with the creator. We are
Yeah.
coming back into harmony and oneness,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes.
And I think that that is absolutely beautiful.
Yes.
And we can't be afraid of the things that are going to get shaken up and dismantled and broken apart in
Mm-hmm.
that transition, right?
Absolutely.
So other than that, I really don't feel like I could say anything else that you know would be efficient. Is there anything else that you want to say to the people?
Sis, you have said it phenomenally, and I am grateful that you've allowed this space for us to share, because what is to come from it is a maturity in us. And when I say us, I mean all of us as the children of light
Hmm.
who are transitioning into the new earth and new heaven known as Zion.
That's it. And it's, you know what, I do want to talk to you about a second episode because I feel
Oh,
like there are certain pathways that we didn't go down at all, right?
absolutely. Absolutely.
Um, so definitely stay tuned, y'all, for a part two. Thank y'all for listening thus far. Like, comment, subscribe, follow us on our various platforms, right? I'll drop your information in the description box.
Okay.
Um, yeah. Oh,
Absolutely.
yeah. Yep, that's all.
Okay. Well, sis, it has been a phenom. It's been a phenom. Salutations and
Monet.
Monet.